Hey everybody, it's Carl again, and today I want to talk about some of my favorite Savage Worlds resources and things like podcasts and my own videos that I think are what I'd call must-watch, that I really enjoyed making and I think are probably something, if you're new to the channel, you might want to watch. Adventure and intrigue, fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and brave their nice. A +2 and I might succeed. Hi, this is Carl, again, as I said, at Tabletop Tango, and I'd love it if you like or subscribe because that gives me a chance to use some of the community tools. At the taping, we're at 500 subscribers. Woohoo, let's celebrate, and please help me get more so I can use some of those community tools. So once again, what I want to talk about today was, in celebration of those 500 subscribers, I want to talk about some of my favorite resources available for Savage Worlds. So let's start with podcasts. There used to be several podcasts that are now sort of defunct, but they've got a lot of back catalog that are still valid and useful. The first one that's kind of a back catalog, we'll start there, is the Savage Worlds GM podcast. You can get to them from YouTube still. I don't know if they still have a feed on iTunes or anything like that, but they have a YouTube channel. And what was nice about that is it was really kind of irreverent. They just said it like it was, very in your face, a lot of really good ideas. Hasn't been around for a while, but the team who used to do that now has their own product line. I think it's Atomic Ninja Studios. So really good stuff there. Second one is the Wild Die podcast, which is also just ended. I think just August 2020 or something like that, or July 2020. They had their last episode, but they also had a lot of interesting content. Very funny. Sort of, you almost didn't learn too much about Savage Worlds. It was sort of the foil for jokes and having a good time, but it was very definitely an enjoyable one, and you could get a lot out of it, even though it's sort of on hiatus now. And then the last one is Savage Interludes, which is going strong. I think they celebrated their year anniversary, and they've been going. It has a couple of the kind of big names who've got an in with Pinnacle, helped work on products, Ron Blessing and Tracy Sizemore, for example. And so that's really good content from a Savage World standpoint. So those are kind of the podcasts that I really like to use and listen to when I get a chance. There's also the Savage Cast, which that's more interviewing people in the industry, but it is definitely Savage Worlds focused. Thus the name, Savage Cast. Then let's talk about one of the places that you can catch news from the Savage World sphere. If you're part of the media network, you can get connected in, and they'll capture your feed, and you may even have seen my stuff because it was on that feed. And savagebloggers.net is a website where it gives a feed for all these things that are happening that are being published in the media network, the Savage Worlds Media Network. Great stuff. They also have a Twitter, which is Savage Bloggers, at Savage Bloggers. Good stuff. I follow them a lot. There's, of course, the Discord server, the unofficial Discord server. I'll have to have a link on that one. But if you're not part of that, there's a lot of interesting stuff that goes on there. You'll find, many of the people who are sort of really into the community posting, putting things out there. I personally don't. I have a hard time with Discord. I just cannot keep up with Discord. There's just too much going on. I much more rather watch forums and see, archived answers. There's just too much there. So I don't really do a lot on that, but it's interesting to watch and see what's going on. So those are some of the interesting things from a website standpoint. If you don't know about savage.us, and I'll have a link again, you really should check it out. It has a character generator. It has a bunch of other resources that are great. It has a free, but it also has a subscription version too, which gives you a lot more access. I used the free one to help me pull together some quick characters with the character generator. Nice thing about Savage Worlds is it's not that hard to make characters, so lots of times you don't even need to use that. But if you're creating your new player character, you're a little bit new to the game, and it keeps track of all the math, because we know, if we get a hindrance, we get points, we do things like that during character generation. How many have I spent? If my trait die isn't high enough, when I do a skill, I have to spend 2 points. It handles all that for you. So it's very useful in that regard. So that's kind of the a lot of the base material. There's probably more that I'm not thinking about because I haven't maybe looked. Oh, yes, there is. One last one is there's the Savagepedia. That had almost gone out of existence, and then somebody, I think last year resurrected it. And it doesn't have a ton of content on it, but and I'll have the link. But savagepedia.wiki, but it does have a list of settings and what version of the game, whether it's deluxe or suede or what have you. It has a version of the game that it's aligned with. So that's very nice. If you're looking for a setting and you're saying, I need to find something that's got this flavor, there's a whole big list of settings. And I use that as I was looking for, new things coming out or things that I wanted to review or look at. Eric and I haven't done a lot of reviews. He's been busy, but we'll get back to those. So finally, last thing, and hopefully you stuck around with me, I want to talk about some of the videos I made myself, because there's not a lot of YouTube videos on Savage Worlds other than how to play it, a review of it, introduction, why I play, and I even did a video why I play Savage Worlds, but not a lot of kind of content that digs in. So I think I'm allowed to kind of maybe hawk my own stuff a little bit. So I'll go from newest to oldest. So episode 60, and hopefully I'll have links, but if not, you can go by the episode number. Episode 68, I have some tips for beginning Savage Worlds GMs. Won't get into the details, but really, if you're starting with the game, even if you play D&D, it gives you a chance to say, here's some things that you might think about different, or learnings that you can use. I have episode 60, which is about helping a new RPG group gel. It's not really Savage Worlds specific, but it was interesting in the sense of if you're coming from D&D and you're moving to Savage Worlds, or you're new to Savage Worlds, you're trying to pull a group together and have them gel and work together. 53, I had GMs, don't forget these basics. So I had some of the basics that all GMs should think about. Really ties in well with the new Savage Worlds GM. Again, not specific to Savage Worlds. One of my absolute favorites is episode 58, which is Savage Worlds rules players forget, and even game masters forget. Really some interesting tidbits that are easy to forget, things like armor stacks and that sort of thing. I also have an episode 50 where my episode 50, which was my big one, I thought was cool. I did a deep dive on session 0. And what I mean by that is I talked about all the things that might go into a social contract or a session 0. It's pretty, I'd say it's almost exhaustive to the point where you're not going to ask all these questions, but it gives you, all the things you might talk about. Even if, you've got a new game group or your existing game group, you can throw some of those questions out, but it really gets into what goes into a session 0. 49, had some things that were about, how players don't kind of bum out your GMs, ideas that you should follow to, keep the game going and work well with your GM. And then episode 47, I had the same thing. GMs don't bum out your players. And then 35, another one of my favorites, which is building challenging encounters in Savage Worlds. So what do you do to make your encounters challenging? If you're used to D&D where it's just hit points and you throw a bigger monster with more hit points and you just keep, and you do that attrition of beating them down, Savage Worlds is a completely different beast because you've got wounds and, the old saying, a villager with a pitchfork can take out the big bad if they get the right rolls. So how do you layer combats? How do you make these encounters interesting? And then I won't go into all the episodes, but before episode 20, there was just a huge number of where Eric and I, my buddy, we got together and we went really deep into the whole rule book of Suede, section by section by section. They should be my favorites, but it was back when the audio wasn't great and didn't really recognize that when I published it sometimes where I was a little quieter than him. And, they're still very valuable and they've got just a ton of good information. But if the sound quality is not great, I'm going to apologize for that. So anyway, talked about some great podcasts you can go after. Talked about a couple of websites that have some good information and a great tool for creating characters. And then, talked about my videos, and hopefully some of those are interesting enough to you to go back in that back catalog and take a look at. So that was my thank you for 500 subscribers kind of video. And hopefully you do like it and subscribe, and that would be awesome. So I will talk to you next time, where we'll have a lot more general information and Savage Worlds information. Talk to you later. Adventure and intrigue, fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed. Whether Cthulhu or D&D.